unfinished business television fans. Show your love for all things retro and movie magic by grabbing some awesome gear from 80sts.com. Your go-to spot for the best nostalgic t-shirts from your favorite movies, TV shows, and pop culture classics. Use promo code UBTV at checkout to save on your order and support unfinished business television. While you're at it, relive the classics or the memories. Shop now at 80sts.com with code UBTV.
One was smart, one was rough, one was smooth, one was slow. This man gave them the chance to do the one thing none of them had ever done before: succeed.
We're not losers, and we're not gonna be losers.
Nick Nolte.
He changed my life.
Weeds, rated R.
Now playing at the Man Regent Westwood and the Town Center in Costa Mesa.
Hey there, everyone. Welcome back to Unfinished Business Television Deep Dive. One of our last of the year. I am your host, Jeff Galashaw, Unfinished B1. And with me, as always, is my co-host, Andre Joseph of AJ Epics Productions.
We're not losers. We're going to be losers.
Yes, this week we are bringing you a 1980s, what I consider kind of a classic, keep in mind. We're going to be talking about the movie Weeds from 1987, directed by John D. Hancock. Hold your jokes at the door now. Starring Nick Nolte, Ernie Hudson, Rita Taggart, Joe Montana, Elaine Smith, of all people, and William Forsythe. This film is about a prisoner who went to jail for robbery with aggression. I've never heard that charge, but I guess it works for the movie. And he's serving life. And after many suicide attempts in jail, he starts to educate himself and read, and ends up writing a play, and he gets all his fellow prisoners involved in it, and it's just such a staggering thing. And a reporter from outside ends up falling in love with him and his work, that she writes letters. And even though he has a life sentence, he gets released, and he decides he's going to take the play out on the road and wants all the original guys who are now acclimated to the outside to be in the show. And we watch as this production changes, takes shape, and grows, and it falls. And the reason I picked this film, it's a funny story. My dad used to get, when he had cable, he used to get a guide from HBO that told you 24/7 what the channel would be playing all day. And then in the back, they'd be like, coming soon. And I remember the box art from Weeds of Nick Nolte just standing there in prison. And I was like, okay, he's in jail. What is Weeds? Is this like a drug movie or what? And I remember finally seeing the trailer, and there's a scene with William Forsythe. And for some odd reason, I thought it was Gary Busey. So I'm like, finally, the twins, Gary Busey and Nick Nolte, in the same movie. I have to see this film. And then it took me 10 years to finally see it. And then watching it, this is a very strange film, because it's supposed to be this deep down drama with comedic elements, but the tone is so strange because it'll be really serious, but then like the scene where William Forsythe shoplifts and it becomes like more like an off the wall comedy of them flushing all the drugs, everybody pulling out guns out of everywhere. Even though at the beginning of this tour they say, okay, nobody does anything. Try to make it humorous. Ernie Hudson abusing some white girl who he met on tour, even though he's a Muslim, a black Muslim. Like this film makes no sense half the time. And this was originally a film for Robert De Niro to star in, who was attached to it. But yet, I'm like, but this film is just. I mean, it was the '80s. Robert De Niro seemed attached to any drama, but I think it kind of works with Nick Nolte because of that gruff personality he has. And this film even finds a way to have Anne Ramsey play his mother and have a quick scene out of nowhere. Um, I mean, it's a very cynical movie, but it's a film that's been lost for many years because it never even made it to DVD. The only way you could find it was VHS or a VHS ripped copy that was available on YouTube for a while. And now they're working on the special edition Blu-ray because they finally found the negative. And I'm happy because I think a lot more people should see this film. It's currently available on Tubi. And I mean, there's not that much trivia about this film because again, it seemed to have been lost. But I mean, you get Lane Smith and some embarrassingly bad toupees throughout this film. And I really thought the one person who perishes halfway into the film who was the pimp. I can't remember the actor's name. I thought he was really good in this film, and I remember seeing him in other films, even Dude, Where's My Car, in a small supporting role. And I really think he was really like amazing. He's a scene stealer in this film, other than kind of William Forsythe playing kind of the doofus, kind of slow shoplifter with his old teeth, before he got them fixed. And Joe Mantegna, of all people, playing the thespian instead of actually being a convict. And I mean, we've got to really give Ernie Hudson some credit because if you look at a lot of his early career roles, they're much more physical and brutish versus eventually it seemed like Hollywood, or maybe he sought them, the more smooth, educated roles he played more towards the middle of his career. So, I'm happy for that because watching him here, if they didn't get Morgan Freeman for Street Smart, he could have played Morgan Freeman's role in Street Smart. Now, Andre, how did you come upon this film, and what did you think of Weeds?
Well, you were the one that told me about this film. As a kid, it's one of those movies I never even heard about when it came to Nick Nolte. I only knew of Nick Nolte from 48 Hours, Three Fugitives, Down and Out in
Oh,
Beverly Hills,
jeez.
and Teachers. Those were the only films. And this was one of the ones that got lost in the weeds because it's a Dino De Laurentiis production. And
Mm.
this was around the time they went bankrupt. So it didn't get a big release at the time, but it got some pretty good reviews. I didn't know, like, when you kept recommending this thing and we couldn't find it for a while till Tubi put it up, if it was gonna be really good or if it was gonna be like a real downer disappointment. This is like poor execution. It's somewhere in the middle because there the musical scenes are really good. I gotta give it to the actors in making them make me believe they're all a bunch of convicts finding their way through theater, and then Nick Nolte getting this notoriety to where it's like, hey, let's get the band back together, let's do a traveling thing, and then all their vices start to kind of come back and taunt them, and some end up doing that, and some, just like get close but never really quite get there. So I think from a dramatic perspective, there's some good things, but it is an odd tone film because the opening scene of seeing like all the prisoners marching, and all of a sudden, like a body just drops, and it's Nick Nolte trying to kill himself. I didn't know whether to laugh or take it seriously, like the opening scene of Lean on Me, where it's like, oh, this hellish school.
Mhm.
Um, and then the other things like Mark Rolston on stage, and he whips out his thing. That was a shocker.
Well,
uh,
that goes with the tone I was talking about. Like,
yeah,
there's a scene where he flashes girls at a Catholic school. That's supposed to be comedic, you know?
hey, or even the bit when Nolte he gets out of prison and for the first time he meets with Rita Taggart's character at her home, and they're about to do it, and then they do that. It's the '80s, of course, but the slow lovemaking sequence, and he has to take his pants off, and he's got this tattoo on the bottom of his stomach again, I don't know whether to laugh or take this seriously. Like this guy's about to get some after being in prison for so long. And then later on, the bit where he hooks up with the girl in the college and then she catches him. I kind of laughed at that. That was pretty hilarious the way he reacted. And it's like, look, I've been in prison. Like, what do you expect me to do?
Exactly.
I got sold by Royal Oats, it's been a hard time for me. um I know William Forsythe is very proud of this film. He
He
always
should
felt this
be.
is one that more people need to see of his work and not just be a tough guy all the time. And he is very good in it. Uh, there's no bad performances at all. I think everybody gives their all, even the guy that plays the pimp that dies halfway through. They're all very believable. And I kind of, the ending too with the riot, maybe that was a little bit overdone, but
Yeah.
I like that whole third act where they're putting the show in front of the public and you're getting those mixed responses and that's affecting his psyche. That's some good stuff there.
Yeah, because if it was a traditional film, it would have just ended with, the critic running to see the show and then waiting to see the review. And then after he gives a mixed review, it would have ended like, we'll get him next time. And
Right.
instead, you have this kind of tagged on ending where, obviously Nick Nolte's pissed because of that review and they're doing it at a prison. And he's like giving all these speeches that's riling up the prisoners. And then all of a sudden it ends up in a riot. Also in that scene, the warden is an idiot because
Mhm.
he's like, close the gates. All the cops made it through. How did you not? You're right next to the opening. So I just felt that was the only like kind of ridiculous thing in the third act. And while we know the fate of William Forsythe's character, did Lane Smith survive this?
Yeah,
Because
he
he
just took
gets
like a beating and then we don't know what happened.
exactly. We only see no, he did survive because when Nick's doing that whole thing about I went to see a prison in the weed. I guess the meaning of the title.
Yeah.
Lane Smith is with them. Now, the only part I didn't believe, even though it might be true in life, Rita Taggart being older than Nick Nolte. I
Oh
don't
yeah,
know.
that was weird.
Yeah, like I don't know if it's just because we know we were, Nick Nolte was older when we were first introduced to him, so he always looks old to us, or maybe he is younger, but he's always just looked kind of rough, kind of haggard. So that's why I was like, wait, you're older than him? Like you guys kind of look roughly the same age. So, but I also think Nick Nolte deserves his flowers because I mean he was a leading man in the '80s, but if you notice other than 48 Hours, a lot of his films don't get talked up, or none of his performances are really talked up the way they used to be. You know, I'm not like sitting here saying, oh, he's one of the greats. He should be there with De Niro. But I mean, he wasn't a bad actor and he got a lot of
Yeah.
leading roles and was believable. Now, his personal beliefs, hey, that's all him. But there's a reason why he does keep working, why he was in Affliction, why he was like in Warrior and got nominated for that. Look, don't let the one bad mugshot for a ridiculous arrest and just the Incredible Hulk in general,
Yeah.
take all those accolades away. Like I said, I think that might be why I kind of like this film because again, that weird tonal shift and the fact that it's so hard to find. And a lot of the actors are now character actors, but like in 19, I guess I didn't do the proper research. I didn't read the reviews from back then, but I want to know like what did audiences think of this when this was like a major release at the time? Uh, you know, so I'm
Well,
just
yeah, I mean, 87, because the late 87 when it came out, I think people were just maybe whatever came out around that time, they got distracted by and just didn't really. It's not a downer movie, but that ending where it's the riot and Forsyth dies and Nolte and these guys are getting beat up by the security. I think it was just given the decade was so many good feel good movies that were doing the big bucks, this kind of fell through the cracks.
yeah, it's one of those that should get more credit. Like I'm not going to say it's a masterpiece, but I think it's an interesting film that more people should watch cuz one of the things that I will say about this film, it's very unpredictable. You don't know literally what's going to happen from scene to scene. I mean, I don't know if I would want to see the stage show because like early when he's dressed up as a demon and all that, it's just like, huh? To what it eventually becomes, I'm just like, okay. And I mean, like again, I like the introduction where with each character we find out what they're in for. I it's kind of I wish this had one of those endings where it tells you what happened to each character essentially, in the future. Even though the way it's pointed, it seems like they're all half of them are going to end up back in prison. And I really think, and I know this film is based on Rick Clenchy and his
Yes.
relationship with a journalist in real life. But I think this is something more people need to see. I know, sorry guys, this isn't one of these bad movies we're gonna just kick, about how bad the quality is. This is one of those where I really hope anybody watching has seen the film and wants to talk about it, whatever their theory or their interpretation. And also, I just think this is an unsung movie from Nick Nolte, director John D. Hancock, and obviously William Forsythe agrees. You know, so did you have any favorite scenes in this film? And
Yeah, I think when he got caught with the girl in the college, that made me laugh my ass off. But I think it was probably not the riot when he loses it. Maybe when I would say it was those 2 in particular, and maybe when Forsyth steals at the convenience store, and then they think the cops are following them, and then they
yeah,
pass them by. And then flushing all the drugs.
that was my favorite scene out of the whole film because that's
Yeah,
where really I started noticing what's the tone this movie is
yeah.
going for. But like I said, I mean, Nick Nolte, I think he's going to be one of those legends. You're going to have to find out everything once, God forbid, he passes away and somebody writes a book about him. Um, I wish he would make a comeback of sorts. I guess in the leading man department because I didn't see a walk in the woods with him and Robert Redford, which I think
Yeah, yeah.
might be one of his last bigger roles. Um, I don't know. Like I said, I really just hope people watching this out here eventually find this film on Tubi, Blu-ray. I'm not saying it's going to be a Criterion anytime soon, but I think it's an injustice that it's underserved. And hey, William Forsythe, if you ever want to come on the show, talk about it and other roles in your career, please come on because love you as a character actor, man. Um,
I do have some trivia, Jeff.
okay. Oh,
So you mentioned Rick Klusky, who Nolte's character is based on.
mm-hmm.
Apparently, he was paid $20,000 for the rights to have this produced into a film. He was unhappy with the end result. He
Kind of
said
understandable.
he resents the fact that there's those scenes where it turns out Nolte was plagiarizing one of
Okay.
the big plays he was doing, and he signed a contract guaranteeing him a role in the film and for roles for his San Quentin Drama Workshop. He had a non-speaking role, which I don't know who he played, but the workshop members were never used.
I can understand then why he was pissed. And
And apparently, one of the crew members became
oh yeah.
friends with a real life
Mhm.
inmate at Statesville's prison where they shot, and they became so close. This crew member tried to make this person help escape from the prison, and they were caught 2 days later driving down South Dakota highway.
Now, I wish they would have given like further information. Like, did the crew member go to jail for aiding and abetting? And
Was it a woman who fell in love with the inmate?
maybe it was a man who fell in love with the
Uh,
inmate.
you never know. It's
Uh,
Hollywood.
Exactly. So I'm like, is there any other trivia for the movie?
Well, you mentioned De Niro was almost going to star in it. He was attached for a while. Um, Irwin Winkler was supposed to produce it, and then he backed out when De Laurentiis was willing to finance it. Uh, and when De Niro dropped off, they were going to just get like an unknown before Nick Nolte was cast.
Now, do you think if they would have cast an unknown, it would have gotten bigger business or people would have wondered more about the film like who's this guy? And
I think it would have done worse at the box office with unknowns.
Well, I mean, with Dino De Laurentiis producing, there was no way it was going to be a no name. He was all about star power. But here's my other question: do you think if Irwin Winkler would have produced it, do you think Robert De Niro would have starred in it? Definitely.
Yes.
And B, if Robert De Niro still didn't do it, do you think it would have been easier, even let's say with Nick Nolte, it doesn't make as much box office. Do you think it would have been easily more available to see when it eventually came out on like DVD, when it was supposed to come out on DVD?
Well, let me ask you this: when De Niro did Jackknife, was that easy to find?
No. It's
So that'd be 50-50. I mean, if it's Winkler and it's say if it's United Artists or MGM that was doing it, it probably would have been easier to find than a De Laurentiis production under that bankrupt company.
That's true, but I mean, there are so many Dino De Laurentiis films you can find, but they were of bigger name, like King Kong Lives.
Right.
Nobody was like, "Hey, where's my weeds with King Kong Lives?" I just don't think, unless you were a diehard Nick Nolte fan, no one was like, "Where's weeds? I need weeds." You know. Do you think De Niro? Well, I mean, he's a good actor, so he could have brought flair. Do you think he would have been more believable in the role?
I think they would have been on equal footing, although I think De Niro probably would have added extra to it.
And I'm wondering if, even though I'm sure the character was there when De Niro was supposed to, was Joe Montana kind of like a spoof of De Niro? Mm,
Yeah, I think so. Because the way he kind of fell in with everybody, other actors probably would be freaked out by the whole process. And he's like, oh, this is great. And I'm getting laid. Sign me up. I want to do more.
Exactly. I wanted more scenes like that when the guys are trying to decide what he would have went to jail for, like
Right.
that kind of off the cuff
Like,
things.
I'm not gay.
Exactly. It's like, oh, he doesn't look that dangerous, Um, and nothing with kids. I was like thankful for that. Yeah, he's no Trump. But anyway, I had to put that dig in there. I had to. So, would you recommend this film to other people, though?
Yes, I would recommend it.
Okay, so obviously, so do I, since I'm talking about it. So, well, that as do you have any last words on the film?
I think it's a movie, I wouldn't mind if they tried to remake this and throw Coleman Domingo in there. So, or, I mean, he'd kind of do it Sing Sing. But
I was gonna
I think this
say.
is this is ripe for a remake of some kind.
Okay, I agree. Again, if Sing Sing hadn't taken over, because I feel like if they did do it, I feel like obviously it would be more dramatic and serious rather than the comedic elements to it. But I mean, with Sing Sing, they actually at least half the cast was real ex prisoners. So
Yeah.
I feel like you can get away with that now more than you could have, let's say, 1987, though. So obviously I highly recommend it. And unfortunately, that brings this episode to a close. Go out and see this movie wherever you can find it. So that is all we have in this deep dive. But until next time, I wanna go home. For those not in the know, that is a song that comes up throughout the film, and
I'm
it's
not
part of the.
singing.
Okay, so unfortunately, you will not get Andre to give his pipes to this. But until next time, we bid you adieu from in the deep dive.
If you like this review, please be sure to like and hit subscribe to be alerted to new episodes in the future.